Hi, how's it going? Some of y'all are still connecting to audio. And
Hi.
hi, thanks for coming. I'm excited to be here. So some of you, I think, already know me, but in case for those of you that don't know me, my name is Courtney, and I write study material, digital courses, and make videos, do tutoring for people that need to pass a lot of different Texas exams. So not just the core subjects, but tonight's all about the core subjects. So that's what we'll focus on. So that being said, I like to start right on time because I do have another session starting at 6 o'clock. So I won't keep you guys long. We'll make this quick, but I'm going to pack in a ton of value. I think you're going to learn a lot. Um, but I like to start with getting us excited. Are you excited?
Well, Steven,
I'd love to hear from you in the comments, or you can unmute your mic. Who's excited? Hopefully you're excited. Give y'all a second to answer. Nobody's excited? Okay, I do see some reactions. That's good. Yes. Well, I was super excited when I decided to become a teacher. Um, I wanted to make a difference. And I also selfishly, maybe not, wanted a job that worked with my family's schedule. Is that how you guys feel? You want to make a difference, but you need to be there for your kids, right? And it's hard if you have a 9 to 5, because those often turn into 9 to 6. Um, so yeah. So I was excited for those reasons, but we know that in order to get your job, you have to pass these tests, right? And the thought of that just made me stressed, nervous, afraid to fail, and frankly, overwhelmed. Overwhelmed whenever I looked at study material. I felt like I had too much to do and not enough time to do it. I was in graduate school, I was pregnant, and I was working because they hired me before I passed my test. So I was teaching, I was, taking care of my husband. I was pregnant. I was writing my thesis for graduate school. So I was stretched thin, and I bet some of you guys are too. Um, so I want you to know that I know how you feel if you're feeling that way. And so what did I do? I went and I bought study material, right? And some of it was really good. Like I, of course, didn't know what to buy. So I just went with big name companies that sell material for lots of different states, right? And it was good material. Information was good, but it was overwhelming with a lot of information. And a lot of it was never on the test, right? So it was good information, but I wasted time on stuff that was never going to be on the test. And I realized that after taking a few of these exams, that I could make material that would save people a lot of time and effort, because I only focus on the Texas exams. And these other companies, they make material for the praxis, for the FSET, for the CSET. And what happens is they include a bunch of information that is not going to be on your test, right? So it's all good information, but it's going to be information overload for many people. I know it was for me. So that's that's how I felt. So it doesn't have to be that way, right? Instead, imagine finding a digital course or a book that teaches you in a simple way, effective, easy to understand, and then you pass, right? Without months and months of headaches, right? So why can I help you? Well, I've taken 15 of these exams and I can show you. Um, this is if you log on to the Texas NESINC site where you go to register for your test. Once you take your test, you get your scores here and you can see I've passed all of my tests on the first try, right? So 15 of these. different tests, right? And I'm about to take another one. So I've passed all of these with good scores. I can show you my scores too. It's kind of hard to see, but usually I score 260 or 270 or 280. Sometimes even I've had a 293. So I score high, and it's not that I'm the smartest person in the world, but I do happen to know how to take these tests, right? So that's just a little bit about that, but let's get started on the content because I came here to teach you guys some math tonight and I want to do what I promised, but I wanted to get some business out of the way. So if you haven't yet, definitely check out the free Texas NES-INC manual. I'll put the link in the chat box. It's not really enough to help you pass, but it's a good starting point, right? So I've been doing this a long time, and one thing I've noticed is that out of all of the competencies in math, the one that everybody just about needs help with is patterns in algebra. I hear that all the time. I need help with patterns in algebra, right? So I thought, well, we'll do a little bit of that tonight, and then we'll do some sample questions, see what you guys learned. And then I'll show you guys my course and see if you, want to take a leap and try out my course. So the first part of patterns in algebra is on functions. And function sounds like a fancy word, but it's not really that hard. It's the relation between a set of inputs and a set of outputs, kind of like a machine with something coming in and something coming out, right? A variable, we probably know this, is just a symbol, usually a letter that represents an unknown value like x or y. The notation for function is called f of x, and they write it like this, f parentheses x. F of x equals x over 3. Each input, x, has only one output, or x over 3, right? If it has more than one output, it's not a function. So you can make a concrete model of functions by showing students to fold pieces of paper into different number of pieces, like fold it in half, 2 pieces, and then cut at the corner, right, at the edge. And if they cut, there will be only one hole, right? But if they fold it into 4 pieces, they'll get 2 holes. And so on. This is a very simple function, and it's something hands-on they can do and see how that works. Then you can graph it, right? F of x equals 1/2 x. So notice that y is f of x is 1/2 of x, right? 1 is 1/2 of 2. 2 is 1/2 of 4. So we can see the pattern is very easy, and we can graph that, right? Using our x, y chart, can discuss the function as a class. There's different types of functions, but luckily on the core subjects EC through 6, it's going to focus on linear functions. We're not going to have to get into exponential functions and things like that, right? So for linear functions, for each change in x, the change in y is always the same. The change in y divided by the change in x is called slope. Slope, you might have heard it as called rise over run, right? Change in y over change in x, delta y divided by delta x. Linear functions cannot have exponents. If they have an exponent, the slope is not constant, right? So here's an example, y equals 2x. That's a linear function. We can plug in our values. So for x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then y equals 2x, all we're doing is multiplying by 2 and plugging those values in, right? We can see that the change in y is always 2, right? 4 minus 2, 6 minus 4, 8 minus 6. And the change in x is always 1. 4 minus 3, 3 minus 2, right? So the slope is going to be 2 divided by 1, which is our m. Y equals mx plus b, right? And notice there's no b here. B is the y-intercept. So the y-intercept here is 0. So is this a linear function? Yes, it makes a straight line. That's a linear function, right? Now this function right here is an exponential function. If we plug in our values here for y equals x squared plus 1, we can see the slope goes up a lot, right? See how the change here is 4, and then 6, and then 8, and then 10? It's not a steady slope, right? So that means it's not a linear function. So it's not going to make a straight line. See how it curves up? And if it kept going, it would curve up even more exponentially. Algebraic reasoning. So some of us think of algebra as something for high school, right? But algebraic reasoning begins even in kindergarten and first grade. So we might ask them, if I need 4 pencils and I have 2, how many more do I need, right? And they count up 3, 4. So they know 2 plus something equals 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's algebra, but it's for little kids, right? So it's appropriate. They can't really think abstractly. They might need manipulatives to be able to do that. They need their counters, right? And they say, okay, I have 2. I need to get to 4. How many more? And they use their counters. Um, Another way to use math in the classroom, you can, I've had, like my daughter had a class where in first grade, they made applesauce, right? And they can learn how to modify the recipe. Now, for first grade, you probably couldn't double a recipe, but in third grade, you certainly could. You could teach them how to double a recipe, right? By multiplying everything by 2. And then if they want to check their answers, they divide by 2. Implicit and explicit rules. So implicit rules are implied, understood, but not specifically defined. Explicit rules are clearly defined. For example, students counting by 5s likely understand the implicit rule of adding 5 to get to the next number in the sequence, but they are not likely to be thinking of a specific equation or function. An explicit rule of counting by 5s would be y equals 5x. So even in first grade, they're counting by 5s, right? But they wouldn't know this equation. They would know the implicit rule, not the explicit rule. Right? They have to know how to use patterns, right? And even in kindergarten, they're going to be using patterns, but the patterns will change as they get older. Like in second grade, they're going to be recognizing patterns in number families. For example, 5 plus 6 equals 11, 6 plus 5 equals 11, and 11 minus 6 equals 5, and 11 minus 5 equals 6. Those are called fact families, number families, right? All right. So now it's the number properties, commutative, associative, distributive properties, right? And those you would have learned about earlier in my course, but I'll refresh your memory if you don't remember. Commutative means the numbers move around, like 3 plus 2 equals 2 plus 3. Associative means the parentheses change, where you put the parentheses. And distributive means you carry the addition or subtraction over multiplication. So that will make more sense if you review in my course in a previous section. But functions, we already talked about that, and we already talked about variable. We already did this too. So that's just reviewing the graphs. Next, using variables and unknowns. There are many types of problem-solving situations students can evaluate and use equations and expressions. For example, if a 6th grader wants to go on a field trip and he needs to save $100, let's figure this out. He mows lawns to earn money. He charges $20 to mow, and each time he mows, he spends $2 in gas. How many yards does he have to mow in order to have enough money to go on the field trip? In this case, the student can make an equation, or they can guess and check. First, we will show an equation. The student needs $100. He earns $20 each time he mows and spends $2 in gas each time he mows. Therefore, his profit is $18, right? $20 minus $2, $18. 18 times something equals 100, right? So here we have 18x equals 100. We divide by 18 on each side, and x equals 5.555. So we know he has to mow 6 lawns, right? Because he can't mow 5.55 lawns. To guess and check, they could say, well, maybe if I mow 3 lawns, 18 times 3, well, that's only 54. That's not enough money. And then they could guess 5, and then they would say, oh, that's still not enough money. And then they guess 6, that's enough money. So see how the equation is more effective, right? If we can figure out the equation, it's faster. All right, proportions, ratios, and percentages are taught in 6th grade. Sometimes they do ask when things are taught. So it's good to read over the TEKS. If you just Google TEKS, they'll come right up, right? And they're linked to my course too. So how can we make this real world? So let's say a 6th grade class is reading a novel for English language arts that is 200 pages long. The students have been complaining about how long it is taking them to read the assigned chapters. The math teacher tells each student to time how long it takes them to read 10 pages. Each student must use proportions to figure out how long it will take him or her to read the entire book. Tim reads 10 pages in 20 minutes. So we put 10 pages on top, 20 minutes on bottom. How long will it take him to read 200 pages? Well, we have pages on top over here, so we need pages on top over here. 200 pages. We don't know how many minutes, right? X. So now we need to solve for this. So we can cross multiply, right? 20 times 20 is 4,000. 10 times X is 10. Now we're going to divide each side by 10, 400. It will take him 400 minutes to read the entire novel, right? So then we could divide by 60 to see how many hours that is, right? All right. To determine which linear function best represents a set of data, you need to use data and check it against those functions.
Bitch ass motherfucker.
Okay, so here are 4 functions given. You must determine which function represents the set of data above. Y equals 2x, y equals x minus 1, y equals x squared, y equals x plus 1. Let's fill in the data for function 1 to see if the data corresponds to it, right? So all I'm doing here is I'm going to pick the x values and plug it in and see if I get the y value. Y equals 2 times 0. So y is 1, 2 times 0. Well, we know that's not right. 1 is not equal to 0, so that one's not right. Now if we do it for this one, y equals x minus 1. So if x is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0, 2 is not equal to 0. All I'm doing is plugging these in right here and checking it, right? So that's not right. Y equals x squared, 1 equals 0 squared. 1 equals 0 squared. That's not right. So it has to be the last one, but let's look at it. 1 equals 0 plus 1. Y equals 0 plus 1. That one's correct. But you always want to check more data points to make sure. 2 equals 1 plus 1. That's correct. And if we keep going, they're all going to be correct. Relationships. Beginning in 6th grade, students learn about inequalities and how to solve them. Y is greater than 3x plus 2. Y is less than x squared, right? We can give them real world scenarios to make this more relevant and interesting, right? So maybe Bob is a 6th grade student and is technologically savvy. His neighbors hire him to fix their computers and pay him $8 an hour. He is saving for the latest PlayStation and needs to earn at least $400 to buy the gaming system and equipment he wants. How can an inequality show him how many hours he needs to work to earn at least $400? First, always go over the information you know, right? Try not to get overwhelmed. And also realize sometimes they give you extra information that you don't need, trying to trick you, right? So we know he needs $400 to get what he wants. He makes $8 an hour. How many hours does he need, right? So first, multiply 8 by the number of hours, which we don't know, right? So 8 times x. We want it to be greater than or equal to $400. Now we're going to divide each side by 8. And we have x is greater than or equal to 50. So he has to work at least 50 hours to earn his PlayStation. And somebody had a question. I will email the recording, but it might be tomorrow because it takes a while to convert. And I have 2 more tutoring sessions tonight. But I will send the recording. System of equations. Here, what we're going to do is isolate x and then plug it in. So I'll show you what I mean. Here, if we want x isolated, we're going to subtract 2y, right? X equals negative 8 minus 2y. Now we're going to take this x here that we have that's isolated and plug it in to the second equation. Negative 8 minus 2y minus y equals 9. Now our 2 negatives become a positive. Those 2 negatives become a positive. So we have 8 plus 2y minus y equals 9. Now we have 8 plus y equals 9. Now we subtract 8, y equals 1. Now plug the value of 1 into either equation to solve for x. Negative x up here. Negative x minus y equals 9, right? So we're just going to put our 1 for the value of y there. Negative x minus 1 equals 9. We're going to add 1. Negative x equals 10. So now we want it to be x, not negative x. So we're going to multiply both sides by a negative 1, and we're left with x equals negative 10. Then you can check your answers by plugging it in, right? So you can see, I write this in a real simple way. I'm not a professor, right? And so it's not super academic. And I start with easy examples. And then the questions are more, a little bit trickier. The questions at the end, right? So I build you up to it. Basic operations, you know all about addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, right? If you don't know how to do a cube root, all you have to do is say what times what times what equals that, right? It's something times itself 3 times. So the cube root of 8 is 2. 2 times 2 times 2, right? Simplifying terms. This would be an example. We're combining like terms, right? Here, we would multiply across. Factoring polynomials. This gets kind of tricky. We definitely don't have time to do the FOIL method, but there's some tutorials here that I put here in the course. And then you probably remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? To follow the order of operations. Some people call it PEMDAS. So you always do what's in the parentheses first, then the exponents, then you multiply, divide, add, and subtract, right? So I have to go a little bit fast, that way we can get to the questions. So now I'm going to do these questions, and please put it in the chat box, your answer. We'll do a couple of questions, and then I'll show you my course. Okay, so I'm seeing D. Let's see if anybody else is picking an answer. We'll go with D. Okay. So D is correct because it is the most learner-centered way. So we always want to pick the one that's most on topic, right? But here multiple options were on topic. So if they're both on topic, which one is most effective and most learner-centered? So D is correct. Solve for X in the system of equations. You might need a pencil and paper to do this one, unless you're good at doing math in your head. So remember, you want to isolate and then solve. So actually, this one's already isolated for you. So I'm seeing, let's see. Good. I see the answer here, but I'll solve this one for y'all because some of y'all aren't answering. Y equals X plus 3. I'm going to take this, plug it in right here. So then I have X plus 3 minus 2 equals 6. Then I have X plus 1 equals 6, right? Then I'm going to subtract 1, and I'm left with X equals 5. All right. So we didn't have enough time for a lot of questions, but we packed in a lot of content. So hopefully you found that helpful. Did you guys learn a little bit tonight or get some value out of this? Yes. So that's great. So if you're feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, don't know where to start, this is my course that you've been looking at, but I'll show you. It's pretty quick and easy to get through. There's videos for each section, right? Where I explain it to you. But I encourage you to read it too, not just watch the videos. That way you really learn it. And then you take a quiz at the end of each competency, right? And then a final test to check your understanding, right? So it's got everything you need to know to pass, but not all the extra stuff that some of the other programs out there have, because like I said, I only make material for Texas, for this state, right? So that means I can really cater it to the exact test you're taking. So if you feel like maybe you have a study guide and you don't like it, you can change to my course, cancel your subscription if you have one. Or if you've bought a book, maybe you still use the book, but you use my course too. So there's the link for my courses. If you only need math, you can buy just the math and save money. But if you need two or more subjects, it's cheaper to buy the whole plan. Um, and I had a Veterans Day sale yesterday, and I decided to just extend it a couple more days because I'm doing free tutoring. So I thought, well, I'll do that. So if you type in the code 10%, you can save 10%. And then I will email out the recording and the link too, in case you missed the link. But I think you'd like my courses because, like I said, they're very simple, very straightforward, and it'll save you time and aggravation. Um, so does anybody have any questions or comments? No. Guys are quiet. Well, hopefully you're feeling a little bit less frustrated, less overwhelmed, and know that you can actually do this in a matter of weeks instead of months, right? Um, so I'm not going to say it's in 2 days, but I think if you study each subject about a week, and allow yourself a few days to review, that's a realistic goal, because most of us are working and doing other things. We're not studying all day, every day. Um, but I'm excited for you guys. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'm going to be doing lots of tutoring tonight, so I probably won't be available tonight to talk. But you can call or text me. And if I can't answer, I'll just get back to you. But thank you guys so much. So hopefully I'll see y'all the next time I do this. Thank you. Take care.